Right.
Yeah.
Emotional infidelity. And there's some people who argue that that's even stronger because being able to reach the spirit and maybe even soul of somebody emotionally, right, pierces deeper than the sexual or physical.
I've
Um,
heard that from a lot of women.
yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard that too. That a lot of women think if he has an emotional connection with the woman, they would rather him have slept with her and do that a few times and be done with it than for there to be an emotional connection.
I've heard that. Yes. That's deep.
It is, and I think because a lot of women complain about a man's unavailable emotionally, right?
Mhm.
And so they've been struggling for the past 10 years to get him to open up, and all of a sudden he's opened up to the lady over there, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where some of that the wife's betrayed in terms of her feeling ultimately betrayed is that he couldn't be open and vulnerable with me. How could he be that way with her? I've been, I had.
Hi, I'm Clarissa from Love Fearlessly. I want to tell you about the products we create with faith and purpose in mind. At Love Fearlessly, we design biblical affirmation cards, journals, and wall art to encourage you and keep God's promises front and center in your life. These are more than just beautiful items, they're tools to help you stay rooted in scripture, speak life over yourself, and create an atmosphere of faith in your home. Whether you're starting your day with affirmations, journaling your prayers, or decorating your space with God's truths, our products are here to remind you that His love and promises never fail. So if you're ready to bring more faith and encouragement into your daily life, check us out. At Love Fearlessly, we're here to help you live boldly in God's love.
Brave Hearts community, this is Sean Heineman, your premier pre-engagement coach, back with another segment of It's Scary to Remarry, inspiring you to love fearlessly. My co-host Aquila Maddox isn't with us today, but it's all good. So shout out to our co-host Aquila. But today we have a returning guest. Today's guest is a mental health clinician and psychotherapist in North Carolina. She has her own private practice where she works mostly with adults of all ages. She does a lot of relational work, starting with one's relationship with self, couples, couples work, and even family work. She also offers services in Spanish. Love that. She believes therapy offers a path to healing so we can get back to loving. I know that's right. Bravehearts,
Yes, yes.
let's show some love to Beatrice Parker. How are you doing this evening, Beatrice?
Thank you. I am wonderful. Thank you for that introduction and very glad and grateful to be here again.
Yes, we are doing this again. I'm excited about this topic, the four most important things in any relationship. This is actually like a part two. I had someone else come on and had like a singles perspective from it. So with you being a psychotherapist and being, married and going through divorce, I'm sure you'll be able to add some insight to those people as well. I want to say shout out real quick to uh Riley O. Riley O. I'll have her linked up in the description. I got this shirt from her at a vending event, Black Man CEO. So shout out to her. Young lady's doing her thing. I'm so proud of her for doing what she's doing. Riley O. I will have her linked in the description below. Black Man CEO. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Okay, Beatrice. So based on your experience as a psychotherapist, what are the four most important things in any relationship?
Sure. And there are lots of things that are important, but to narrow it down to four, the first one I find important is faith. And the reason why I say faith, you have to have something that's going to anchor the both of you, something that you can go back to as the blueprint, the guide, right? The reference point, because we all have individual experiences and perhaps his truth, her truth. We want the truth, right? And
Mhm.
because the individual truth are subjective.
Yes.
And so I think it's important to have the faith if God is a part of it, if faith is a part of it, if the word is a part of your marriage. Again, you have guidelines, you have parameters, you have a framework, right? Not that you get everything right, but it's something like, again, when things are in turmoil or not going well, you have something to go back to. So that's the number one thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is communication and good communication. And I know people say communication, texting, video chat, telephone, all those things. But good communication requires transparency, it requires vulnerability, it requires authenticity, it requires you being willing to make sure that your partner has what they need to understand where you're coming from, where you're going, what things are going on. None of us are required to be mind readers, although many marriages and relationships, they want you to already know what to do. But good communication means that I can articulate my needs and my wants, my grievances, right? The things that I love about you, not just the negative things. Good communication also means good things because maybe I like flowers every month, but if I don't say that, I can expect that he's going to automatically know that, right? That's just, a very basic example, the same way, quality time and all the things that people talk about. And the third thing, I say love because while it's a very broad topic and controversial sometimes because people have their own definition, what I will say, going back to number one, the faith, there is something, there are definitions of love, right? We know that we need something that's going to be the glue besides faith that's going to keep us coming back, that's going to keep us committed. And it's not just love for your partner, but love for yourself, love for other family members, love for God that will allow you to also be a compass for your what you do and how you do it. And then the last thing I'll say is growth mindset. I think that represents flexibility. So people who meet in high school or even college, right? Before you're 25, the science says that your brain is not even developed. So think about people who got together early and they literally have grown up together and now they're in the age of 35 or 45. They're completely different individuals. And what growth mindset will allow you to have is that you understand that who you met at 19 or 24 is not the same person at 44. And you're going to give them the grace to be able to adapt and to adjust with the things between marriage and careers and children and deaths and promotions and all the things that happen in life, right? If we are in a fixed or scarcity mindset, we think people will never change, right? Versus growth mindset allows for new possibilities and hope.
Mm, love it. Those are some
Mhm.
great
Thank you.
points. Love
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
flexibility is huge, right?
Oh my
Because
gosh. Oh
uh
yeah.
and I remember TD Jakes talking about this one time. He said you got to be willing to turn with your
Ooh,
spouse and to turn. He's talking about the motorcycle, when you turn, that person on the back of you, they need to hold on. Y'all got to be in the same direction.
yes.
You
Great
know,
analogy.
yeah, and I know for me, and I think we might have discussed this before, that was maybe the deciding factor that caused me to go through my divorce, was because we weren't willing to make that turn together.
Hmm.
She
Hmm.
turned down one street, I turned down another street, and
Yeah.
I see the effects of that. So I'm glad that you brought that up,
Yes.
that we don't talk about that enough, because we're in our home, right?
I
And
know.
we see this person every day, but we don't even know that they're changing.
For 20 years. It's like the person who's losing weight, everybody else can notice it first before you notice how, your new body, right? And the same thing, like you said, we get complacent. We get very comfortable and we forget, yeah, that they're a human being growing and changing and becoming too, if they're healthy.
Yes, for sure, for sure. If you have any questions for today's guest, make sure you leave your questions below. We'd love to hear from you all as well. So thank you all for joining us. Those are great points. So how did your personal experience with marriage and divorce shape your understanding of these four pillars?
Sure. So the same things I just talked about, I think showed up in my marriage in a lot of ways. I know that when we went to marital counseling, that one of the things we talked about was good communication. In fact, our counselor gave me a book to read called Feeling Better Together, which is about not just romantic relationship communication. I think I mentioned that last time too, by Dr. David Burns, but it was life changing because it was good communication on every level. And so I think for me, when I began to change how I communicated, he responded in a positive way, right? Everybody around me responded in a positive way. And not that I was a bad communicator, it's just that we speak fluent English, we do very well in our professions, and sometimes we think it translates into to romance or personal relationship, and it doesn't always translate, right? We have to be able to take off the work hat, the parent hat, and put on the husband or wife hat, and being able to again because you've been together 2 years doesn't mean he still remembers or that she still remembers. So good communication means that we should be able to talk about adversity, right? With respect, with dignity, learning that sometimes you can't talk about things in a moment. So those were skills that I gained in the process of us, our marriage going through turmoil. I also know faith. Faith was something that we both agreed on. We both are Christians and believers. So being able to have that as a guide, and sometimes were things that we disagreed on, but in the end, it was a unifying factor. And I think ultimately, the growth mindset of me growing and developing and deciding that, who I was when we met however many years ago to who I was becoming was not fitting in with where he was in life. And so while I was willing to continue, I personally think he had a fixed mindset. And so he wasn't willing or able to be flexible about us, where we were at that stage in our lives and how our lives together will look based on where we were then versus where we had been.
So you've been through that on your own personal
Oh,
journey.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. And that can be painful because sometimes I know for me, I'm like scratching my head, like, what happened?
I know, because a person you love, I mean, at some point we loved each other deeply. So, and I had imagined and envisioned, like I didn't expect to be single at this stage in life, right? So I had imagined being his wife, and to start seeing things that were going to unravel that, it is painful. It is painful, and I do think it wasn't one thing. It was things that built up over time, and then there was the moment that we decided, to go going on together was not going to be the thing that we needed to do.
Understandable. I respect that. Sure.
Mhm.
Which of these four elements do couples tend to struggle with the most?
That's a great question. And they're all, I see all of them basically in all the couples that I've worked with.
Yeah.
But I would say that I think good communication, because again, if we talk about where we are now versus where we started, right? Lots of couples that I've dealt with recently, they've been together for, I'll say, 10 plus years in many cases. Um, and again, if you're saying, well, but we used to, not recognizing what life stage, right? She was in her 20s and now she's in her 50s, or you're going to be different. And so sometimes because of the resentment and unforgiveness and the little things that eat away along that eat at the relationship along the way over years, all of a sudden it comes to a point where you have this wall built up. And so now it's hard for him to hear her, for her to hear him, which is where I come in to hopefully be able to articulate some of the grievances on both parts, right? As well as the beautiful things. Um, and then them being able to see new possibilities. Now, what happens is they're not able to communicate in a way to hear each other. So there's a lot of emotion, like and normally like anger involved and frustration, and just like I'm tired, right? Because we've been arguing about this for the past 5 years, past 5 months, or however long it's been. And many times it is the communication that, their unwillingness to change how they deal with each other, how they communicate each other, unwillingness to go and sit before a therapist or a counselor or a mediator to say, hey, this is who I used to be. This is who I am now. This is who I want to be now with this person. And it's hard for some people to articulate that, and it's even harder for other people to hear it sometimes, especially if a partner feels like they've been blindsided, like maybe they've been going on willy nilly, and the person, because they have not communicated this whole time, right, has been building this case, and all of a sudden they're in my office, and now they're like, oh, I had no idea. Right.
Do you know, yes, one lady from TikTok, she says, I can't see her name from here. I need my glasses. She says, yes, I resonate.
Okay, thank
I resonate with that. So,
you.
yeah, so it's probably common.
I think so. I mean, I see it. I see all kinds of couples, right? And it is something that I see over and over again. And one of the exercises I try to do with them before we get started is let's go back to when you first met, right? Let's go back to that day that you decided that, hey, this is the guy that I want, this is the girl I want. What was it about them, right? And many times I see their face like light up, like, oh, I've forgotten, right? Like they remember, oh, and when you read my bio, that whole thing, back to love, that's what I like to help people get to if it's possible, right? But you have to have two willing people who are willing to do sometimes very hard work and long sometimes work. So I try to get them back to that sweet spot, to that romantic spot. And for many couples, it's good to like you see a light come on and they both talk very lovingly about that moment and several moments sometimes. And so, yeah.
There's a book that we were reading in our marriage class.
Mm,
It helped transform my marriage. Came out recently, but I think the study is somewhat fairly new.
mhm.
But it's called The Mindful Marriage by Ron and Nan Deal.
It's like I heard of the couple, but I haven't read that book yet.
Yeah. Um, I'll have a link in the description. But they talked about like not repeating this dance because, like you said, the conversations, the arguments, they're the same. They're this dance.
Hmm.
It's the same dance. It's the same arguments for
Hmm.
years and years. And he was talking about, so who's going to break the dance?
Yes.
Who's going to become emotionally regulated?
Yep.
And he had like these four steps. But I mean, it is
Sounds
very
good.
transformative. Yeah.
It sounds very good.
So, uh, well, you know what? I want to take a break for a second because I wanted to talk about our sponsor at Love Fearlessly Intimacy Card Deck that my wife and I created. 30 card deck just to get to know your spouse, your significant other, someone you're dating, getting to know them better. We talked about, people changing. So when you ask these questions, you'll be surprised. Sometimes you'll say, "Oh, I didn't know you thought like that.
Mhm.
I thought you were like that." So I'm going to pull a card from the deck. You can find those intimacy cards at scaredtoremarry.com. I'll have it in the description below. So I want to pull a card and I want to read it, and you let me know what you think.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. How do you define infidelity or betrayal within the context of a relationship?
That's a good one. Because that's the other thing I see, right? When I have arguing spouses who say, but I caught them talking to another lady or to another man, and that the trespassing spouse will say, but we just were talking. We haven't done anything. We haven't crossed the line. So I think that is an issue, right? There is a general definition, but I do think that people tailor it based on, where they are in life. And so for me, there's something called emotional, right?
Yeah.
Emotional infidelity. And there's some people who argue that that's even stronger because being able to reach the spirit, maybe even soul of somebody emotionally, right, pierces deeper than the sexual or physical.
I've
Um,
heard that from a lot of women.
yeah, I've heard that too. That a lot of women think if he has an emotional connection with the woman, they would rather him have slept with her and do that a few times and be done with it than for there to be an emotional connection.
I've heard that. Yes. That's deep.
It is, and I think because a lot of women complain about a man's unavailable emotionally, right?
Mhm.
And so they've been struggling for the past 10 years to get him to open up, and all of a sudden he's opened up to the lady over there, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where some of that the wife's betrayed in terms of her feeling ultimately betrayed is that he couldn't be open and vulnerable with me. How could he be that way with her? I've been, I had his children, I took his last name, I've cleaned, all these things that they're thinking, which goes back to what I said about good communication, that lots of times infidelity is because of an absent or lack of something in the house, right? Granted, there's some people who cannot contain themselves, they don't have discipline. I recognize that. But for other cases, it may be that that person, which I do see that often too in couples, that they've been trying to get quality time or they've been trying to get a person to participate in activity with them. And they find somebody who's willing to go ballroom dancing or who's willing to learn how to golf with them or who's willing to, take every Friday night and leave the children behind, right? And and they build and someone who listens, right? Because that's also something that couples, sometimes stop doing to each other is listening.
Oh my God. Yeah. And next thing you know, you just thinking about this person all day. And you're home, but you're not home. But you
Exactly.
thinking about this other
Your
person.
thoughts and sometimes text and that technology's only made it easier I say to have quadruple lives, right? That people are able to be, of different people, have people that meet different needs. And I often think about how sometimes people, when we talk about infidelity, like meeting needs, that if you're thirsty, think about if you're really, really thirsty, right? And you finally get a glass of water, what that does to you on a natural sense. The same thing if you have a deficit of some type in your marriage, and somebody comes along who's able to feel that, because you need to be satiated, you're going to go in that direction. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that many times leads, partners astray.
Okay, I want to stay here for a second because this is really
Okay.
good.
Okay.
So when you talk about deficits
Hmm.
in marriage and even with people that you've counseled, do you believe that there's always going to be, I don't know if always the right word, but do you think that deficit will be there to an extent throughout the course of a marriage, or do you think that it's just kind of ebbs and flows?
That's a great question. So if we go back to my growth mindset, right, that my needs yesterday may change tomorrow, right? If that's how I operate, then to answer your question, even when deficit arises, I'm going to grow so that I'm able to fulfill that deficit versus me saying, I've always been this way. My mama was this way. I'm going to continue to be this way. I'm not changing, right? And then that's when we get to now you're opening up space for your partner to go looking to be fulfilled in other ways. Again, I don't justify infidelity, but what we're talking about is how do we end up, if we're looking for root causes, right? You have someone who's telling you, I need more sexual contact. I need more attention. I need to be treated. I need to be romanced, whatever the issue may be. And you keep saying, but I'm too tired. I'm too this. I'm too that. And you never give in, right? If push comes to shove, right? And they feel like they're not getting it at home, they may seek somebody else. And so, in terms of, I think they can come and go, but they don't have to stay if individuals have done the work to understand, okay, here we are in a marriage. You're right. I started working a new job. I've been working more hours because things have increased. Now I have to find a way where I can get a few more hours so that I can be there for you. Or what can we do as a couple to alleviate some of this pressure and stress that we're having so that we can get back to loving again, right? So we can get back to um, where we don't have deficits, but we're operating from a good standpoint.
I love that. Yeah, because I was on fan base today, social media app fan base, and they kind of have that clubhouse kind of feel to it where you could talk to people in the rooms and stuff.
Okay.
And this kind of similar question popped up, and I was telling the people in the group that, no matter, and I know people say never, but I'm just like, if you feel that there aren't certain needs being met, because I think sometimes people put a time frame on when you're supposed to change.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I told you my need, and I
Mm-hmm.
need you to tighten this up in 3 weeks because that's all I got.
At 3 o'clock on the last day of the third week, yes. Yes.
March
Yes.
29th, I need,
Yes. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. Okay.
and he's like, it was Central. She's like, no, Eastern.
Left me an hour.
I'm leaving. I'm leaving. You know,
It's so true. It is true though. It is true.
mhm. And I think that's where a lot of couples get caught up because they put a time frame on when they feel someone's supposed to change.
Mhm.
So that I think that's kind of the challenge.
I think you're right too. My hope for couples is that we're realistic, like we give each other grace. And grace means that sometimes I may be weak, my temper may be raging, I may feel super stressed at work, but all that has to do with me regulating me. So the thing I say, and we can talk about it later, but we have to work on ourselves first. We have to get tools first for ourselves, equip ourselves so that when we have children, become a spouse, that life stage things happen, that parents, we talk about aging parents and the different things that happen in life, that it's not something that we go to back to trauma or back to past grievances, but that we thinking about, okay, I know we said that we would do these things, but this is our reality now, right? How do we deal with it now? And understand, again, I'm gonna say therapy because I'm a therapist, but even if I wasn't a therapist, I've always thought that counseling, whether it's from church or from, a couple who you trust, right, who have a great marriage, who may be mentors, that kind of thing. But definitely they're trained counselors, professionals who can help you sit down and but you when you come, you need to be willing to put in the work. Because of some people, believe it or not, will come and say, I just want one session. You've had this problem for 5 years. Okay. It's not going to happen in 90 minutes.
Yeah, right.
It's a process. It's a process.
Yeah. But that's the Amazon mindset, right?
Yes,
You
yes.
know,
Prime. They want the prime there.
they want a prime. They want it tomorrow. It's gonna be on
Yes,
my doorstep. And I
yes.
need my therapist. I need my therapist to fix this within
Today.
24 hours. So we kind of live in that mindset, unfortunately. So just like the way they drop off them packages, the same way we expect people to drop off our issues so
Resolve them. Yes.
it's unfortunate. And I think that's just probably one of the reasons why a lot of relationships struggle today is because everything, and I guess I'm telling my age, but there were times when we didn't throw stuff away. Like if we had a flat tire, we fixed it. We didn't go
Mhm.
buy a new bike.
Mhm.
You know.
It's so true that the microwave culture, as I call it, right? You said Amazon, but that fast, we don't have to wait. Like patience has been removed almost because we want it. What it takes 2 seconds for us to get to the next swipe, right? Instead of a millisecond. It's the time. Like I can't wait 5 minutes in the line. I got it has to be 20 seconds. That whole rush is not helping us. Look at how people are have high blood pressure. They're stressed out. They can't even sometimes think because things are going so fast and they're trying to multitask and do all these things. But I encourage people to slow down just because you could let's be countercultural that way. Slow
Mm,
down that if the relationship is worth the work, slow down. And there are people like me and other professionals who are willing to come in and help you get to that. I have to have two willing people, right, who want to go on this discovery of curiosity of who am I sitting in front of now, not since 1996, not since 2008, but who am I sitting in front of in 2025?
yeah. Yeah, there's a book called Margin. And in the
Mm,
book, he's talking about how everyone is everyone has maxed out on anxiety, everybody's stressed out, their cup is overfilled. And it's saying that we need to create margin in our life.
mm,
Very few of us create margin. He's talking about like in all facets, whether that's business,
mm.
financial wise, right? You need to create this margin.
Yeah.
You know, he gave the example of tea. He's like, if you got some boiling hot tea, most of us, our teacup is filled to the max. And all
Mm.
it takes is just for one little poke and it's going to spill everywhere. Like we have no margin. And then we wonder why most relationships don't work because there's no margin.
That is so true. I hadn't heard that, but I do like that concept. And I will say, going back to going slow and not, I know some of it. So this is the danger of like dating for so long and dating so many people that you're going to get dating fatigue, right? So by
Mm,
the time you get married, you just like, I said yes, it needs to be right every single time. And that's the fallacy. Even with God, you're going to have conflict in your marriage, right? The question is, what tools do you have that you both have that you can use to help navigate those things? Because the other thing is, sometimes we're just doing things because people is how everybody else did it before us instead of saying what works for our house, what works for our family, right? Maybe it's better if daddy stays home. Maybe it's better if mama stays home than us paying a salary for two newborns to go to daycare every week. You know what I'm saying? How
yeah.
do we downsize if we want peace and joy and like to really not be just strangers in the night, but actually had to live in a house that we're paying so much money for, to be able to enjoy the children that we gave birth to be able to enjoy our relationship, the love that we have. Maybe it means cutting back. Maybe it means moving to another place. Maybe it means slowing down. So I think that again, we have to reevaluate what our normal looks like, what our family culture and cultures as couples are.
Yeah. I love it. That's so good. Yeah, because very few people are willing to downsize and to make the necessary shift, and it's just a season. I tell people it's just a season. You'll get through it. It'll help even build your testimony,
It will.
because even, you get to this place where you like, we were on a struggle bus, but that's when we really, held tight to each other.
And
Um,
I would agree with that because I heard one pastor say one time how a love that's been tested is a love that is strong, right? Because if you've been through hard things and you get to the other side, like you said, the strength is built, the testimony is built, right? You have something to reference the next time something comes along and you see what you're built of,
Yep.
made of. Yeah,
Yep.
I like it.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. My old mentor, he used to tell me, great marriages aren't found, they're built.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just want everything. What you bring to the table? I already got 10 cars, 30 houses. You got
Too
30
much
cars.
stuff.
You got 60 houses. We just gonna bring all this stuff. That's gonna
Yeah.
divide us even further because we got more stuff than we anyway, that's another topic.
Yeah.
Uh what advice do you have for people who feel like their relationship is missing one or more of these key elements of the four that you talked about?
Yeah. I think it's what I mentioned before. If you are struggling in a relationship, it is not a weakness. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person for you to seek professional counseling. Or, like I said, sometimes we have mentors in our life who have been married for up 10 years. You know that they've been through some hard things and you want to get wisdom from them. Whomever. The Bible says there's safety. In the multitude of counseling, there's safety. And so I really believe that if you're struggling, if you're missing one or more of those elements I talked about, find a way to build that in you and in your relationship. Um, with the age of YouTube University, not saying every source is a good source, in the age of all the things that we have access to at our fingertips, that when we were growing up, we had to go to the library, check it out, and do all those things, right? Now you can just literally speak it or type it, and you could get information. And there's a ton of good, there's a ton of like bad information out there, but find a good professional site that deals with couples or therapists, or hire somebody like me, right? Who can help you walk through some of the things. I think no matter how hard it is, I think there's hope when two people, and I keep saying two, I mean, both people are willing to put in the work, are willing to do what's needed to get back to love. If one in and one out, it's not going to work. If people are not going to be two people in it, but technically they're dishonest the whole time about what's going on, right? One has this whole beautiful picture, they're not being honest about their part in it, and vice versa. It's not going to work. But I do know when two people are committed to working on themselves, and as they work on themselves, working on their relationship, it will all come together. And then there are sometimes I do, I see that it doesn't work, right? But again, it's normally one of those things that I just said that both of them, one or both of them have decided, you know what, it's not worth it anymore. I don't want to put in the work that's required for us to get back to love.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the amazing thing about marriage. It's two people, but it just takes one to be like, nope.
Yeah, so
And
true.
yeah, that's all it takes. And it's like it's over just like that, and especially for the person who wants to make it work, like that kind of devastation is tough because you're like, I thought we was doing this.
I know that we've been going to all these sessions. I've been changing my behavior. I'm giving you more time, like I said I would, and you still want to go out. So again, to me, sometimes that makes me think that maybe they were only saying what they thought they should needed to say to hold on to the person versus being completely transparent. Because I would say this, you have to be honest with yourself first. So if you are going to counseling because of somebody else, it's noble, but that's not good, especially if your intentions is I'm just going to do this so I can say I did it, but I'm really going to be checking out in about 3 months, right? When I get my this side thing that I'm trying to create over here. When I get that settled, then I'm out, right? Which means you're not being honest with your partner. I think most, even if it's hard to hear, a partner probably would rather hear, listen, we've changed. My heart is in a different space now. I want to be single. And it might not be single to be with somebody else. It might just mean like this marriage thing is not working for me anymore, right? But they don't want to hurt feelings. They don't want to make somebody upset. But to me, the more you prolong it, the worse it is for the non trespassing spouse. So it has to be something that we are get clear, have meetings with yourself, check in with yourself, right? Is this relationship worth fighting for? If the answer is yes, proceed. If you're saying, I done this the past 20 years and now I just really feeling that I don't care what happens, right? It's just not who I want to be with anymore. And I think your partner is going to respect you a whole lot more than for you to be leading them on thousands of dollars later. right?
Yeah, right.
Things that you
Yeah,
don't get back. To just say, the hard thing, which is why it's, counseling is a good time to talk about it, right? You could, it's hurtful and it's going to be hurt. The person will have to, grieve and all those things. But at the end of the day, I think they'd rather that than, a double life.
yeah, yeah. You know what's interesting is, and I'm listening to you talk, is that two people under the same roof and somebody changes. I
Mhm.
mean, we're in the same bed, we paying bills, we raising kids, communication, even if it's not the greatest, you like you said, good communication. But but still someone changes.
They do.
Like,
And so how do you miss it, right? How do you miss the
yeah, how
change?
do you miss it?
So again, curiosity. One, I've always said this, that I think the fire should never die in a relationship. That the romance and all the things you were doing before, you're going to have to figure out a way. Maybe it doesn't happen as frequently because now you have family, meaning children and other obligations. But it cannot be once, twice a year. It needs to be. I mean, I say weekly, but as often as possible. When we allow, and today's we have so many distractions and telephones and computers, people find it difficult to disconnect. We've got to be intentional about this is my partner, whether it's scheduled spontaneous time, but something that you're doing on the regular to bond, to get to know, because you can be with somebody 16 years and still discover something that you didn't know 16 years ago, because we're that dynamic as humans. But again, I think people get comfortable. They're secure in the marriage in terms of legally, I got you, whatever, I have you. So why do I need to continue to work? The same way when you invest in the stock market, you just can't put money in one time many times and just let it go. Many you got to do some change some things, do some things if you want to see maximum return on your investment. The same thing about your marriage. You can't just say, okay, 1998, we established, here we go. We'll do everything. We're just gonna go through the motions. No, you have to regularly check in. You got to fight the temptation of having this pseudo marriage and having deeper connections. If you're living with somebody, it should be deeper than before you started living with them. You have children. There should be some things like, what the vision for you and your children, right? What are we going to do when the children are off to college? Like, are we going to travel the world, or are we just going to, all the things that you need to ask. So to me, there's so many levels, but I think people, again, they many times are just going doing the motions and not necessarily making the deep connections and being continuously curious about their partner.
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah, because shameless plug, my ebook Second Chance at Finding Love After a Bad Relationship or After a Failed Relationship. I was doing some research on living on autopilot,
Oh, yes,
right?
absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
that's what happens to us a lot of times. We just live on, and I believe those numbers are high. The majority of people just live on autopilot,
I would agree.
which is sad. Yes, and Zandra, she said exactly. She said she changed. And then Furniture Spot says, "Oh goodness, so scary. It's hard because everyone's tired after that, I guess. I get the leftovers of a man now."
Oh, that's a good point. And so when I talk about modifying your life so when we're 20 and we think we're not gonna ever die, that we're gonna always be vital and we're gonna be able to do all the things we do however many times a day we do it, is fallacy, right? It's one of the beautiful things about being young, right? You just think that youth is forever.
Yeah.
You get in your 40s, right? You discover I mean, I think we do a lot of self-discovery, but one of the things that we have to do, we may have to modify. And I know people are like, how can I work less when it costs so much to do life? So this is why I say sometimes we have to make hard decisions. If your marriage, your family is worth it, the same way people talk about investing money, you look at your budget and you say, okay, we can cut here and here. That's an extra $200, right, towards investing versus some of the other things. The same thing in your marriage. How do we take time? How do we take who we are? So maybe it's not in the night, maybe it's in the morning. There's plenty of research to talk about how being physically intimate in the morning can set your day like off the charts in a good way, right? There's sometimes,
Really?
oh yes, morning physically, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Wow.
For all the things that everything has been stored up and like the sleep is to replenish everything. And then in the morning, right, that it's a chance to get to release all that elevated goodness, and then all those endorphins and all those beautiful hormones being the thing to help set your day. Try it. It does work. But
Oh,
so it might not
okay.
be, yeah, not just at the end of the night. I mean, what about midday? I always talk about afternoon delights, and I'm not talking about
Yeah.
midday.
Afternoon delights.
Right. It doesn't not we're grown, right? You're married. And
Right.
you don't have to, wait till the nighttime. It can be the children are at school, we're gonna meet at home or somewhere else and discover. And I think that sometimes people get it's always the bed, it's always,
Yep.
one way instead of saying again the fire, how can we, what we couldn't do as teenagers, now we can do as full adults. How do we make it spicy or make it like something to be excited about, right? To be something that we include, and it's not the leftovers. And sometimes it's not just physical intimacy, it's just attention. If you worked 12 hours, you probably don't want to talk to nobody at the end of the day. And I get it. So that's nourish you, make sure that you get what you need, get a good night's sleep, and then at 5 a.m. or 6, sometimes 7, right? Then let us talk about how we can, connect in whatever way we choose to connect intimately.
This is so good.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna text my wife. What
What you doing in the morning?
you doing in the morning?
At about 5:45, when the baby get up.
I gotta be to work at 6. Need you to
Okay, well
wake,
then maybe 5.
need you to wake up a little earlier. Oh, last question. This has been a phenomenal episode. So many places that we could really unpack. Uh, oh my God. You're gonna have to come
I
back a
can come
third.
back. I want
Yeah, you're gonna have to come back a third time because
Thank you.
with
I
these
will have.
conversations be crazy. Just great. If you could give one piece of advice to someone preparing for a serious relationship or marriage, what would it be?
Gosh, I kind of said it. Please work on you. The one I'm listening to the book Let Them by Mel Robbins, and I
Yes.
would say that if you haven't, it's a very practical book. But one of the things that she talks about is when we focus on how we respond, we have control and power, right? The only thing that we have power over is how we respond. In order to have healthy responses, it means that we've done our internal work. We've done therapy, we've done something to acquire skills so that when I hear certain words, I'm not gonna go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, right? I'm gonna learn how to breathe first. I'm gonna learn how to close my eyes. I'm gonna learn how to say, you know what? Because I'm feeling like I might not say a nice thing, let me go for a walk really quick. I learned so self-regulation, right? We are learning techniques to manage our behavior and our emotions so that we don't say or do something that's going to hurt the person that we love. That's going to put us in a space where now we're going to have to defend our why we want to be here. So I think doing the work on yourself to acquire emotional intelligence, to learn what adaptability intelligence is, because the only thing constant is change. And we talked about people changing. When you understand the flexibility and being able not, oh, but we did this. So what that you did it for 15 days 2 years ago? It is 2025 or whatever, and soon to be March, right? In a few
Yeah.
days that we have to understand just like the seasons change, people change. And when we have those internal tools, when we have those tools and things that we can go to, then we respond differently. So when I talked about myself, when I was working on my communication, our arguments decreased because I wasn't always questioning. I wasn't always doing things where I needed to have an argument about it. I just accepted that sometimes it was going to be that way and knowing when to talk and when not to talk, right? Those were skills that I acquired that not only helped me in that relationship, but also helps me in my other relationships. Sometimes we don't need to speak, like learning to be quiet. All those are self skills. And so and the other thing is when I know myself, because self-awareness I can is important, then I can articulate what I want, what I don't want. I'm clear about where I want to go. And it could be true in 2024 and it may change 2 years later, right? Or what have you. But if I don't know me, if I don't know what I want, then how can I articulate that to somebody who's supposed to be there, who wants to help me, right? Who wants to be supportive, who wants to give me what I want, who wants to learn how to navigate life in a partnership with me. So again, self-awareness, growing and gaining tools so that you can be emotionally responsible, right?
Yep.
It's going to help you in your marriage, right? And understand it's an evolution, right? Because as you change, you're going to be dealing with your own identity and body and spiritual changes. then to add a partner to that situation means you're going to be able to deal with theirs. Then you add children, right? So if you don't have those skills built up, it's just going to be a web and a tangle, and people are going to continue to be traumatized. People are not going to understand that, raising teens are just like raising toddlers. You got to learn how to, except for they're taller, bigger, they can speak a whole lot more, they're more articulate. And you haven't done your work, you understand you need to breathe first. And
Mhm.
that sometimes what you're seeing is just the behavior to be of the ice. So the top of the iceberg is the behavior, to go underneath the iceberg to understand like what is really going on. Why is it that every time I bring this up, you are outraged, right? And I asked nicely, but if you don't know you, if you haven't taken the time to know that person, then it's going to be hard for you to be able to have that kind of patience and that kind of resolve to handle sometimes very volatile situations. I do recommend that book, Let Them Too. It's not, she's not a psychologist, but she uses a lot of therapeutic information as well as very practical information. I think an eighth grader could listen to it and I think learn and glean something. So definitely adults.
Gotta love Mel Robbins. Gotta love her. Yes. Xandra asked, what were the books? Yeah. It's Let Them by Mel Robbins. And the book I was talking about,
Margin.
Margin. Yeah, Margin is and the Mindful Marriage. But I'll have all that stuff linked up in the description below. Because like you talk about being regulated, when he was talking about in the book, he was talking about these 4 steps.
Okay.
And these 4 steps are how say what you feel, um, what you would usually do in these
Mm,
situations. Uh, 3 is truth of the matter is, so you're regulating. And then the fourth one is next time I will.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So if you walk through these 4 steps and you get to a place where you actually say them out loud,
Yep.
you're talking to your spouse, so you're literally regulating your mind to think different. And now all of a sudden the playing field becomes even because if that person is regulated, y'all both can have a decent conversation now because you're like, okay, they're telling me how they feel without flying off the handle.
That's right. You de-escalate it, right? Because
Okay.
sometimes it's the yelling, not the subject matter, that gets people off their hands, right? That if you had said the same thing like nicely and softly, I might not have done that. Versus you were yelling when they said it, so that put me, in a dysregulated system. So I'm going to yell back because I feel like fight or flight. I'm going to fight, right?
Yep.
So I like that because those questions allow, again, you're going inward. You're trying to control you. You controlling you is going to inspire the next person to control themselves, right? Or at least perhaps limit what might happen if you both decided to escalate the situation.
Exactly, exactly. This has been a phenomenal episode, Beatrice. Of course, you're gonna have to come back for another one.
Absolutely. I'm glad to. I'm
You're
glad
gonna have
to.
to come back. So let everyone know how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So on Instagram, it's Absolute Joy and the number 11. So Absolute Joy 11. Or you can reach me via email at hello@beatriceparker.com. So hello@beatriceparker.com. I am on Psychology Today, so you can look up my name again, Beatrice Parker, and see all the lovely areas of practice I have, as well as how you can contact me. So I'd be happy to help in any way I can.
Awesome. And you speak Spanish too.
Sí, yo hablo español, entonces toda la gente que quieran hablar conmigo en español también a sus órdenes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm learning
I
Spanish.
said if you speak Spanish, I'm here for your service as well.
No,
Yeah.
love it. No, love it for sure. Well, Brave Artist community, you heard it here. Make sure you go connect with Beatrice because we all need therapy in our lives. I mean, hey, that's what we need in our lives. So make sure you go connect with her. Hit the subscribe button, share this video with a friend. You never know who might need it. As I always say, make sure you put it in your group chat with your friends because you never know who needs it. Watch the video, come back, get in the group chat, and then you'll have the conversation. And then y'all just have a whole community of healing in the group chat.
Yeah, I
If you
love
are,
that.
huh?
I love that idea. Amen.
Yeah, for sure. These group chats, I'm
They're
like,
massive.
yeah, I'm in like 3 of them. My phone is always going off. I'm like,
Yep.
where are these people coming from? Anyway, yeah, so share the video in your group chat with your friends.
Yes.
If you are listening to this via podcast, make sure you leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts by doing so. Put you in the drawing for a free Amazon gift card. Who doesn't like free stuff? This is Sean Heineman with my special guest.
Beatrice Parker, glad to be here, y'all. Thank you for having me. And again,
For
Braveheart.
sure. Brave Hearts community, take care.